Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So on the agenda tonight we have Jon Gomm, and this is going to be coming from 2011 and it's going to be his performance of one of his tracks called Passion Flower. So let's get Jon up on screen and see how he gets on.
Tiny prison cell, a million times smaller than you are. One single drop and you're risen up, afraid of the dark.
I'm just going to jump in here. I suggest you watch this the whole way through. I'm going to put the link to it in the description below so you guys can just watch it uninterrupted. The only reason that I'm jumping in is because that I'm asked to do this, but also there is so much that is going on here that I have to jump in just to cover it section by section. We'll watch it in two halves. But first of all, the way that Jon blends in the percussive elements, which I've mentioned in other videos that very much tend to be the thing that's in vogue at the moment, especially on YouTube, in terms of using the body of the guitar, hitting it, striking it, but also using your nails on the right hand to get rhythmic, percussive sounds out of the guitar whilst playing. And another thing that we've got here is the way that Jon is changing the pitch of the string by actually turning the machine heads. I think the wave of acoustic players who are playing percussively on the guitar, but also tapping and changing pitch with the machine heads like Jon's doing here, very much has been in the last maybe 5 years, 6 years, in terms of the amount of players you start to see. It really has increased recently. But this is pretty much the guy that you want to watch that might have probably set all those other guys off, because it is so great to watch. The one thing that Jon has got that a lot of the other players hasn't got is the addition of a vocal, and it's something that I've always been looking out for with percussive acoustic players and acoustic players who tap on the neck. They always seem to play a piece just on its own. It's just a percussive acoustic piece that's really melodic, but there's no vocal, there's no lyrical content, there's no human voice to it. And I love the addition of a human voice. I love songs. I just love a story, and a guitar can tell a story, but not like a human can. So the fact that Jon adds that vocal is just absolutely the cherry on top, because I've seen so many videos obviously like this, but not as good as this. The way that Jon throws these melodic components together, just breaking down the machine head in terms of how you're turning it when you're tuning your guitar. In order to turn it this specific distance and this amount takes so much practice to get it spot on every time. Because imagine if Jon didn't twist it enough, or he pushed it too far, it means that that string would now be sharp. And then the next string would be flat or sharp if you didn't quite turn that right either, which means then your next taps and your next chord shapes are going to be out of tune. So everything is so dependent on twisting that machine head exactly the right distance every time. And of course, Jon absolutely nails it. And if you do play guitar and you have strung your guitar quickly and not really paid too much attention to it, you'll know that sometimes the string can overlap itself, which then means that you can be even tuning up and playing for quite a while, but it means that at some point you always run the risk of that string hopping over itself and losing tension, and then you'll get a sudden drop, a sudden decrease in pitch because that string has lost its tension. So that kind of thing happening here, of course, would be an absolute disaster, but Jon would have made absolutely sure that his string isn't overlapping so that he can get that consistent turn and that consistent change in tension. And I say about guitar players, playing and singing at the same time doubles the difficulty. So just times that by 100 when you're looking at something that is technically top level stuff, top level tapping, top level playing, top level percussive playing on the body of the guitar. Just then to supply a vocal over the top of that as well. I can't even imagine how much time Jon has spent on this particular piece to get it to this level, because so many players would stop at the level of just having the track down and they'd play it as an instrumental piece because it is already so impressive melodically, just as a standalone acoustic guitar piece. But then to have the patience and the ability to throw in a vocal over the top of that is just crazy. I mean, it's amazing to watch. And I also love the fact that on his voice, he's got that octave effect as well, which is giving him the octave below his voice. It's really subtle, but it gives it such a great quality, such a unique quality as well, and really does tie it in with the sound of the guitar. On the sound of the guitar, we've also got that tiny hint of overdrive on there. So it almost sounds like an electric guitar in those lead sections that we had at the beginning. And in that intro section, he's not picking the string. That's all hammer-ons and pull-offs, 3-note per string scales, but also just a couple of hammer-ons and pull-offs to open strings. You have to be so solid, especially on acoustic, to get those hammer-ons to ring out as cleanly as they do. And just adding a vocal on is just absolutely, like I said, the cherry on top, just that final melodic element that absolutely just takes it to a whole different level that I haven't seen before. But let's get back into it.
Pavement, super slow motion. No, your back is gently breaking. your weakness. You are what you grow into. You're not what you were.
And there we have it. I mean, what a composition in all, the way that we've gone full circle by the time we get to the end of the track. Again, we've got these 3-note per string scales with tapping as well, and very much kind of what I'm into in terms of playing hard rock and tapping on the guitar. The only difference is I'm doing it on an electric guitar. Doing this on an acoustic guitar is so much more difficult because you haven't got that safety net of sustain and overdrive. And as you could tell, I was going to interrupt it earlier, but it's just one of those things when you get a great composition and great technical ability and just great artistry, you just want to watch it all the way to the end. But what I was going to point out was those percussive elements on the body of the guitar, the way that Jon is scratching the body of the guitar, because even that, in order to scratch in time, each one of those scratches has to be a very particular length for how long it lasts in order to fit in with the timing of the rest of the track. So even having the accuracy to do those 2 scrapes just so perfectly on the body of the guitar, but then also just fit that in and combine it with all the other elements that are going on. So there is so much going on here that would have taken so long to get down. Of course, the beauty of the art at the end of it is that we just all get to see it in one fantastic 6-minute composition. We don't see the amount of hours and days and years that have gone into it beforehand because we just get to appreciate the art at the end of it. And what really does put it in perspective is all those other players that also are top players, great tappers on acoustic guitar, great rhythm players and great percussive players, and they can combine that all together. We've got other players who do change the pitch with the machine heads, but I haven't seen other people sing and compose, and actually a lot of guys will do their own acoustic cover of a well-known track. And again, that's great, and you can appreciate the amount of technique that's got into it and their own expression through somebody else's work, but then coming up with something totally original that is this good, by the way, the journey that we've got, and also the way that we almost go into solo sections where you're expecting to go into a solo section. The thing that sets this composition apart, and I'm not even including here the technical aspects of the tapping, the percussion, the vocals as well, the thing that sets it apart is that when you listen to it, you can hear a whole band. You could almost imagine what it would sound like if a whole band were playing it, and maybe if you had an orchestra who were playing certain parts in the background. Everything is included on Jon's fretboard. The bassist, all of his lines are there. That main melody, the rhythm is there as well. The tapping is there for that lead line that you would get if somebody was playing lead guitar. And then, of course, you've got the vocal just placed on top of all of that. Another thing thing that just pops its head up in the intro and also in the outro are those little lines that make you think of other guitarists. And especially when he was playing through, a little bit of Joe Satriani was in there, just because of that combination of those 3-note per string scales, hammer-ons, pull-offs, but also that hint of overdrive that's on there as well. And it's one of those things that's so hard to do, to have your own voice on the guitar and sound like yourself, even though you're playing techniques that every other guitarist has played already, but you're putting your own spin on it. And people watching this, of course, will think of Michael Hedges, who I've also done a video on if you've been watching this channel. But as I said, Jon has his own way of including so many techniques from different players and his own techniques, and just rolling it up in a ball and then composing something with all of that knowledge and all of those influences that is then original. And it's that perfect relationship between technical ability and melody and expression, and then original composition as well. So when you've got guys like Jon, it absolutely sticks out like a sore thumb that you're watching something special, because he's got so many elements that sometimes a band needs 3 or 4 people to do. He's got that percussive element, so he's got effectively that drummer, he's supplying that, he's supplying the rhythm. He's then got the lead guitarist as well, who's playing the lead lines, like we've got in the intro and the outro, but also we've got a lot of tapped lead lines within the composition, right in the middle of it. We've also then got the vocalist, and again, Jon is supplying that. And we've got a bassist, where Jon is tapping. We can see on that low E string, the way that he taps in the bass notes. One guy is doing something that a lot of guys need to get together and apply their own individual ability, which then the sum of those parts is then amazing, rather than just having one guy and just the sum of him is amazing. And that's just what we've got here. It's one of those videos that you could break it down for years and years and years, and even learning this piece would take so long because it has to be so thought out, so planned in order to pull it off like this, the way that Jon does. It'll take so much rehearsal. And of course, if you do want to actually pull the track off like this, as authentically as Jon is, you're going to have to sing. If you can't sing already, you're going to have to learn to sing. And again, that is just so many hours work if you're not a natural singer. But thank you so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at. Keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!